on happy teachers create happy classrooms. My name is Vama, and I'm a psychologist working with Circle of Life. At Circle of Life, we're a team of mental health professionals who work along the lines of positive psychology, mindfulness, and social emotional learning. And this webinar is in collaboration with K.I.T.E.S Education, which is a platform which extends its services to the next realms of education. And they really want to create and enact and establish the dimensions of a new and a better education system. So we welcome you all. Now, before I formally move on to this webinar, I'd like to ask you a quick question, and you can feel free to join in if you'd like. It's a fairly simple question, and you may think, why is it even required? But let's just have a go at it. You can reflect, and we could have a discussion about it maybe at the end of this webinar, right? So the question is, how are you? How are you feeling? How have you been feeling? I know on the face of it, it's a really simple question. A lot of people ask it, but let's just take this time to, reflect on how are we actually feeling. A lot of you might say that, I'm good, I'm okay, I'm fine, and I'm really glad that you're feeling that way. But yeah, let's just try and reflect on this, and maybe we can have a discussion later. Oh, I'm glad to see that a lot of you are active on the comment section as well. And throughout the webinar, feel free to stay as active or even more. You can mention your questions, any comments, any possible thing, as active as you possibly can be, right? Okay, so I guess it's a good time to start off. So I'm really glad to be amidst a lot of educators this evening. And as you all know, that the teaching profession has changed dramatically over time. And it's also reportedly one of the most stressful professions out there. And despite all the challenges that we've had to encounter the past year, or that the challenges that we've overcome this past year, all the educators have gone out of their way to make sure that the students have had worthwhile learning experiences, that their lessons were meaningful, and also super fun. We've all had those moments where there was a bad internet connection, or we were struggling between mute, unmute, the students weren't responding, or we weren't able to figure out how to really work along the technical aspects. But we've managed to make it work. We know that when we're all together, we make it work. But amidst all this chaos, there's an aspect of education that is often left unnoticed. That's teacher well-being. And this is at the heart of today's webinar, today's discussion. We also know that education has for long been very narrowly considered to be just for students, learning and growth and building on strengths. But I think you all will agree with me that education goes beyond that. It also transcends for teachers as well. And this aspect of teacher well-being has long been, left ignored. But this is the time when we have to get it back into focus. If at all, the past year with all the global crisis, if it's taught something, it's that change is possible. And with that thought in mind, let us try and shift our focus to teacher well-being. This is a priority which really demands our attention, because we know that we're not only vulnerable physically, but also emotionally. Okay, so a lot of you might ask, why should we focus on teacher well-being? There's tremendous amounts of research which suggests that when teachers experience low levels of health or low well-being, or they're unable to cope with stress, they feel limited to work to their fullest potential. And I don't think I need to cite a lot of research to tell you all this, because your personal experiences justify the cause enough. We all know how tricky we felt when we had to teach when we were feeling sick, or there was a plethora of challenges that we had to overcome, personal or professional. Didn't you feel like there was a lack of energy, or didn't you feel like you were unable to properly manage the classrooms, or perhaps even felt unable to manage your own emotions? We've all been through this journey together, but teacher well-being has often been left unnoticed, right? And I think this is a good point where I can add the aspect of happiness as well. I'm sorry, because for long the idea of happiness has been really mediocre, because we all consider happiness to be all smiles, cheerful all the time. But it transcends way beyond that. The idea of happiness incorporates a really meaningful um, sense of contentment and self-worth, where your efforts can add value to your community and in turn to the rest of the world. And as teachers, you pay so much attention for your students. And I know it sounds funny sometimes, but I think amongst anybody else, it's educators who can understand that success is not always calculated by your salary, but by the potential impact that you can have on students. Which is why I always say that well-being, the idea of well-being, is not something which is nice to have, but well-being is a really important aspect of positive education, something that we're all striving for. At this point of time, a lot of teachers and educators ask me that, why do you, well-being is fine, it's a fun topic to talk about, but do you think when we focus on teacher well-being, are we ignoring student well-being as well? And that's a really good question, a fair question for that matter. But, at this point, I'd like to talk about this really funny anecdote, something most of us have experienced. So whenever we're about to take a flight and we have to go through the safety instructions, there's a very common instruction which says, in case of an emergency, if you have to wear an oxygen mask, please put on your mask first and then help your co-passengers. So the idea of mental health works in a really similar fashion. If we start to take care of ourselves, we can actually take better care of others. And feel free if you think otherwise, or if you share my opinion. I'd love to, see in the comment section if anybody has an opinion on that. Um, because the idea of well-being is very subjective. However, its purpose is very objective. We need to take better care of ourselves in order to take better care of our society. Now let's quickly, walk through a few strategies that teachers and educators could use in their day-to-day life to manage and uplift well-being. So there's a really interesting model called Vama, which is often, included in the science of happiness, and it was introduced by Martin Seligman, a positive psychologist. And PERMA follows beautiful strategies which can really help us to uplift our well-being, to uplift our happiness. So number one, P, try and focus more on positive emotions. You can probably practice gratitude. So think about a few things that you're thankful for. Positive emotions is not always happiness, but it's much more. Something like love, joy, optimism, hope. So we need to focus more on positive emotions. The second strategy is E, engagement. Try and engage yourselves in tasks which uplift your curiosity, which build on your strengths. And then R, try and build and nurture really healthy and positive relationships around you. The era of COVID, as we say it, it's really proven the importance of social contact. So let's not underestimate the power of healthy social relationships. And then M stands for meaning and purpose. So let's try and explore the idea of meaning and purpose in our actions, in our behaviors, and also work towards a greater good. So you could probably indulge in a lot of volunteer services, um, and find that your impact can go beyond just one individual. But you can always start with that. And A stands for accomplishments. We often go about in our lives in a goal-like setting, in a goal-minded setting, if I might say. We're always striving to achieve more and more. But let's try and create smaller goals for ourselves. It could be reading a page of a book every day, or perhaps you want to exercise every day. Your goals are your goals, and nobody can analyze them or judge them that this is a small goal, it's irrelevant. Your goals are individualistic, they're unique, and worthy to be taken note of. And when you accomplish those goals, please celebrate them. Go for it. Every goal, big or small, needs to be celebrated with equal fervor and excitement. That helps you prepare, um, for the future. And even if there are some roadblocks along the way, at least you have that self-esteem, you have that sense of accomplishment within you to keep thriving. And there's this beautiful strategy that glues all things together. And this is the second most important part of today's conversation. And that strategy is called as mindfulness. Is there anybody out there who's heard of mindfulness, or perhaps somebody who practices it? If yes, please feel free to ping on the comments section. And I feel the concept of mindfulness can be, appropriately understood, or in fact, best understood by educators, because across cultures and classrooms, we hear a really common phrase that teachers use. It's called pay attention. I think you can all share that feeling with me. There's plenty of times when we use that phrase in our classrooms. Kids, please pay attention. Because we want our kids to focus on their class and nothing else, to focus on what is going on in that moment in that class. So to understand mindfulness, we can, take cue from this common expression of pay attention. What mindfulness intends to do is it encourages you to pay attention to your thoughts, to your feelings, to your bodily sensations. Because because let's face it, on a regular day, there's so much happening within us and around us. There's plenty to do, there's plenty to think about, and there's rarely any time when we are fully immersed in what we are doing in the moment, in the here and now. But if we take a step back and try and not think about the past or not think about the future, but just engage ourselves in the present moment without any judgment, without any criticism, without considering it if it's good for me or bad for me. We immerse ourselves, and yes, as somebody has mentioned, carpe diem, we try and seize that moment, we try and seize that day. Because believe it or not, it is true that we always think about, or we often think about our past, our regrets. And we often ponder about the future, what's coming my way, what will happen. And that does make us feel anxious, but that's okay. However, if we don't fully immerse ourselves in the present moment, we are giving ourselves opportunities to create anxiety for the future, even when it's not happened yet. So, mindfulness is a really easy and a beautiful practice which can be done anywhere at any time. In fact, if it's okay with all of you, if you're at a place where you can practice mindfulness, I'll give a little experiential practice session over here. But before that, I'd like to, help you understand the concept of mindfulness. That is really wonderful activity which we call as the mindful jar. I don't know if a lot of people have heard of it or not, but it's really easy. And so consider this as your mind. So this jar is your mind. And as we know, there's so much going on in our mind at any point of the day. So let's try and represent all of what is going in our mind through some glitters. And I'll try and put this glitter in the jar. So we see that our mind is now filled with a lot of thoughts and emotions, correct? But when there are thoughts and emotions and so many things to do, things to worry about, how does your mind feel like? Does it feel like it's going on in a swirly motion? Does it feel like nothing's really settling down? Does it feel something like this, that you're shaking your mind and everything is just going on and on in circles? And you're unable to notice something. You're unable to pay attention to something. But what if you could give some time to yourself to just focus on what is happening right now? If it's okay with some of you and if you feel comfortable, take a moment to sit in a comfortable position. And if you feel like it, you may close your eyes. You're free to leave them open, but assume a posture, assume a position which is comfortable. And then take a moment just for yourself. Take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. There's often so much to do on a regular day. So, right now, you're giving yourself a moment to sit back and breathe. Can you notice the rise and fall of your chest? How your stomach expands and contracts as you inhale and exhale? Can you notice any bodily sensations? Give yourself a moment to settle down your thoughts, to give rest to your feelings, and let your breath be your anchor for the present moment. And you may take another deep breath. And when you feel like it, you may open your eyes. Now we've given a couple of minutes to reflect, to sit back and relax and just focus on the present moment. We've also given our mind some time to sit back and relax. And if you can see, all the glitter has settled down. That's the power of mindfulness. Just a few minutes to focus in the here and now. If any of you, practiced mindfulness with me, and if you have any responses, how you felt, or if there's any change that you feel, or if there's no change at all, that's okay. Feel free to let me know. When we engage ourselves with the present moment, we equip ourselves better to grab opportunities. We equip ourselves better to regulate our emotions in a much more healthy manner because we increase our awareness, we increase our focus, right? And mindfulness, the beauty of mindfulness actually lies in its simplicity. The fact that it can be practiced anytime, possibly anywhere, and can be practiced by the youngest of people. In fact, so many benefits of mindfulness have been found in children that if they practice mindfulness, their attention increases, they're less distracted, their emotional regulation becomes so much better, your sleep patterns become so much better. And in fact, circle of life, all our efforts are collaborated towards one goal currently, which is to create a positive impact on the school climate. So much has happened in the past year, but even before that, the school climate was totally dedicated towards academics. Rarely do we find, open spaces where students can really work on their well-being. There's so many stresses that they have to face, so many pressures, so many challenges on a regular day, be it bullying, be it academic pressure, be it challenges with their family or friends. There's just so much going on. They need the right kind of tools to equip themselves to improve their mental health, to be more resilient. And as teachers, as educators, you can play a massive, massive role in that, and a purely positive role for that matter. And Circle of Life can help you with that goal because our program, Mind On, is based on the principles of positive psychology and mindfulness and social emotional learning. It's a comprehensive program where, with just a few minutes of practicing mindfulness in a day, you are trying to work on creating, the foundation of a lifetime of well-being. It is understandable that, what can just a few minutes of mindfulness do, or what can just a few minutes of self-care or working on mental health do. But just imagine a school which is purely focused on academics and the more cliched goals is giving just a few minutes to well-being. The effect is powerful and it's so well researched. There's massive amounts of research which say that mindfulness can help kids, as I mentioned before, improve their stress levels, so they're more resilient to stress. Mindfulness can actually help them improve their academic performance. They are better aware of their emotions, which is why then they react in a better way. Their aggression levels go down dramatically. They start paying more attention to themselves. Their self awareness increases. And overall, they radiate the sense of well being, which was never seen before. And Mind On is the perfect tool for now because, again, because of its simplicity, it is so easy to fit in a regular school curriculum. With Mind On, your academics are going normally, but you're just adding these powerful bits of mindfulness, of well being, and happiness into their curriculum. Secondly, it's based on research. So we can't go wrong with that. It's not a random idea, it's not magic, it is science. And then, given the present times, we've tried our best to adapt this curriculum on a digital platform. So, Mind On runs on a web app that schools can access. And most of all, it is result oriented and engaging and fun. So many students have come up to us and said that there's a sense of calm that they've never felt before. In fact, so many parents have come up to us and you know gave examples of how their children use mindfulness at home. This parent once gave a feedback that her child was used to often throw a tantrum whenever she wasn't able to buy something that she really wanted. And this one particular day, they were at a store and she wanted a particular toy, but for some reason she was denied. And instead of throwing a tantrum, instead of just going out there and shouting or crying, she went in a corner and took a deep breath, and she came back to her mother, and they went on about their day. That is the power of mindfulness. Just a few minutes a day for a lifetime of difference. Right. With that, I come to the end of today's webinar formally, but I'd like to follow up with how I started. So, I said, "How are you?" And a lot of you have responded. In fact, um, some of you have said that you feel enthusiastic, you feel alive and kicking. That's awesome. You feel excited. Great. Well, someone's having a tough time. That's okay. When we know that we're having a tough time, we can process that information and we can react accordingly. And having a healthy social support system is never a bad deal. So try and share what you're feeling. In fact, the reason I asked you this question was because my intention is that we should ask this question more often with greater sincerity. We very casually ask this question, "How are you?" But we rarely ever mean it. But if somebody asks you sincerely, please feel free to share how you feel, and feel free to ask someone else how they feel. Okay. Um, right. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, if there's any doubts that you'd like to ask me, if it's about Mind On or perhaps anything else, feel free to let me know. It's a small bit of information that I'd like to give you that once this webinar gives over, you'll all receive a feedback form along with the presentation of today's webinar. So all the resource material that I've used will be in that presentation. And you're highly encouraged to fill the feedback form because um, it'll be followed up with of the free access to our app, Mind On. Okay, I also asked you this question, why teacher well-being? So if any of you have to suggest, why do you think teacher well-being is required? Do you think it's only because of stress, or do you think it's because of, that even your challenges matter? Or do you think that by focusing on teacher well-being, are we ignoring student well-being as well? Do you have any thoughts on that? At Circle of Life, we often try to work with a diverse population. So we work with individuals, we work with schools and organizations. But the idea of creating a positive impact on the school climate is very close to our heart. And we do intend to we do intend to make a difference. And if you would like to give your school its very own happiness and well-being journey, please contact us and we'll be more than happy to figure out a way to help you out. So somebody's commented, the teacher well-being enhances their performance. Oh, absolutely. There's a plethora of evidence which suggests that when teachers or educators start taking care of their well-being, there's less stress, definitely, but there's also a far greater work-life balance that they experience, and there's far less burnout that they experience. There's an increased level of motivation, and I will always repeat something that I mentioned earlier, that we have to start taking care of ourselves first in order to take care or in order to take better care of others, especially our students and our families. Um, teacher well-being will ultimately help them to give better service to the students community. Absolutely, there's no second thought to that. I understand that the impact that a teacher can create on a student's life is magical. It's wonderful. Nobody can ever imagine it. But in order to create a positive impact, we need to start with a positive impact on ourselves. When we practice mindfulness, it helps us to create a happy classroom. Yes, again, you know, even if you practice mindfulness for under 10 minutes, the effect that it has is tremendous. In fact, MindOn follows unique mindfulness audio practices that students and teachers can use in their classrooms. And they're usually given out in transition points. So in the morning and when the school gives over. And that has shown this massive difference, a positive difference that is created in the classrooms. And teachers have, they're so supportive of this program. And it definitely creates a much better, a much more happier and a positive classroom. Um, what else? I want to learn more about classroom management practically. Oh yes, it's really funny to talk about positive classroom management techniques, especially when we're working in a virtual setting. But of course, we are going to get back very soon to our regular classrooms. At least that's our hope. But the one thing I would really encourage educators and teachers to focus on is their emotional well-being. And that starts with talking and listening. So even when you have to say, "How are you?" please convey that question with utmost sincerity and be willing to listen to their experiences, to listen to what they have to say. All emotions are alike. There's no bad or good emotions. When we see a kid crying, we say, "Don't be weak." Crying is not a sign of weakness. It's just a sign, it's just a symbol of how um, emotions are being reflected, how emotions are being processed. So, yes. What else? You can also turn on your videos if you'd like. If there's something that you've got to ask. Well, thank you, Miss Shelley. You've mentioned the topic is the perfect answer for itself. Yes, that is really helpful. Teach Preeti Gupta suggests that teachers' well-being is the most important thing. Well, it's definitely a very important thing, if not the most important thing. Everybody can have a subjective opinion on that. But what is most important is that we work towards teacher well-being in a collaborative fashion, and every step counts. um, since Pada has said that teacher well-being enhances their performance, that's right. Um, And I can read some responses about the mindfulness activity that we did earlier. So Loretta has to say that she feels more calm and relaxed. I'm glad that you feel so. I've said earlier that mindfulness can be practiced at any point and anywhere, perhaps. And that is true because the present moment is now. Even when currently you're on your screens, somebody's probably holding a phone, somebody's, watching it on their iPad. Try and focus on your posture. Try and focus in this present moment. What are you feeling? What are your thoughts? And take this moment as a bridge to the next moment. Norul Alam, I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly. You've mentioned that you feel different after the activity. I'm glad you feel so, and I really hope that it's a positive difference that you notice within yourself. Right. So if there's any questions regarding mindfulness or regarding teacher well-being that you'd like to ask, you can please write it in the comment section. I'll also show you the mindful jar once again because I believe it's a really good representation of what goes on in our mind on a regular basis and how just a few minutes of um, being present in the moment can do wonders for us. So this was the mindful jar that we practiced with, and as you can see, it was sitting just placed right next to me um, on the table, and it's been settling down. The dust, the glitter, it's been settling down. Okay, so before I wrap up, I'd like to mention again that you shall be receiving a feedback form, and feel free to mention your responses, your feedback, positive, negative. Constructive criticism is really good for us. You'll also be getting some resources after this session and throughout the next week to help you work on your well-being. So there'll be certain self-care strategies. There'll be um, mindfulness practices that you could share with your students and possibly see what impact that is created. Um, Nurul Alam, so we have a comment that will meditation help us to keep our mind calm? Absolutely. Again, people often think meditation is mindfulness and mindfulness is meditation. Um, well, there's a very thin line of difference between the two. And as my colleague, we were discussing about this before, and she mentioned that mindfulness is more like a quality, and meditation is more like a practice. You can be mindful. Um, and mindfulness meditation is definitely a great tool to help us calm ourselves, to help us, you know, re-energize and rejuvenate ourselves with the present moment, of course. So I might just take this time to add or suggest you some strategies on mindfulness, and maybe if you have any opinions or perspectives on that, you could share that with me. So a wonderful technique to practice mindfulness, and a really easy one to start off with, is being mindful of your own breath. You see, our breath is the most constant thing that we experience. Experiences may come and go. We may be doing whatever possible thing that we're doing. But if there's one thing which is always present with us, that is our breath. It is an involuntary action, but the weight it carries is tremendous, and the effect it carries is tremendous. In fact, I once read that how you breathe is how you feel. And if you try and reflect on that, it's actually quite true. It stands quite true. Um, so, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, You can always be mindful of your breath. Notice how you're breathing. If you're breathing heavily, or if you're taking slow, calm, nice, deep breaths. You can notice the rise and fall of your chest. You can notice the rise in, how your stomach contracts and expands. You can notice the movement of your shoulders. A simple activity can do you wonders. Right. Loretta says, thank you for giving us the opportunity to learn something important since we are teachers. And it was worth the time spent during the session. Oh, thank you. That means a lot to all of us. Myself and of course the team who's constantly working on the Mind On program. In fact, I skipped a really important detail that Circle of Life is a proud partner with the Delhi government, and we've collaborated in the happiness curriculum that a lot of you might have heard. So the Delhi government is taking good initiatives to work on the well-being, emotional well-being of students in the government schools, and we've been partnering them for close to 3 years now. um, Preeti Gupta says, thanks a lot. Well, thank you for joining me in this webinar. It really means a lot that you took some time out. Um, the feedback form will also be shared in the comments section, so you can hold on while somebody puts that in the comment section. Miss Shelley has to say that feel ecstatic to be a part of this wonderful session. Well, I'm really glad that you had a wonderful time. Um, as a psychologist, I have the opportunity to work on aspects of well-being which are left ignored, at least in the society, to a great extent. And I also have the wonderful opportunity to work alongside an impeccable team of mental health professionals. So we're a team of psychiatrists, clinical psychologists, and counselors, supported by an excellent um, technical support staff, which makes events like these work. And our utmost, I think, mm, effort is to create an impact, a positive impact on mental health. So we try and create as much awareness as possible. Feel free to log in on Facebook and Instagram on our pages, and you can follow us. Our updates. We run under the name of Circle of Life India, and we often give out regular updates in terms of awareness of mental health and our initiatives on and around mental health. Sonam Garg says that it's a wonderful session. Well, thank you. I'm glad you liked it. And we'll have more such sessions in the near future. In fact, we have a session on the 13th of February by one of our colleagues. Um, Ms. Bindu says, good session, ma'am. Thanks a lot. Well, again, thank you. Um, if you can check the comment section, we've also uploaded the feedback form. You must have received it in your email as well. And along with the email, or maybe right after the email, right after this webinar ends, you will receive the presentation for today's webinar. And if you have any questions, if not now, or if you'd like to contact us later, feel free to get back in touch with us. We shall share our details with you, Circle of Life and Team K.I.T.E.S, of course. And we're more than happy to follow up on any of your questions, on any of your comments. Rekha Bish says that thanks a lot. Thank you. Um, oh, that's interesting. Loretta says that it's an apt slogan, Circle of Life. Well, that's true. We often read a lot at our workplace here, And if I'm saying this correctly, there's a really nice quote that we read the other day. It says, "The life's greatest adventure is finding our place in the circle of life." And I think that we can all resonate with this quote, because at the end of the day, we are trying to find our place. Um, but we have to understand that as much of care that we take of our mental health, we've got to take care of our emotional health as well. Um, okay. Miss Kiran says, thanks a lot. Well, thank you, Kiran. Thank you, Shamsha Merchant, as well, for being a part of this session. It's one thing having speakers talk about mental health and a variety of issues, but it's a whole different thing to have people like you a part of this session, who make it work, who make it, live up and about. Miss Pampa Saha says, I hope I'm pronouncing your names correctly. Uh, Thanks a bunch, ma'am. Well, thank you. Miss Bindu, if I'm not wrong, has raised her hand. If you've got a question, we'll be more than happy to get back to you. You can write down in the comment section as well. The resources that you shall receive imminently will also carry the links to our potential apps and websites, and you can browse through them to see how it fits your needs and how you wish to work on your mental health, and especially that of your students as well. And before I take leave, if I have the liberty to ask again, how are you feeling? How are you? And I ask this with utmost sincerity. I really look forward to knowing how you're feeling, regardless of this session. If I can tell my response, I felt a little bit nervous for the session, as I usually do. But when people take the time out to join us in events like these, it's really uplifting, and we feel really grateful and thankful for your participation. Um, Again, that's a really interesting name, Zankna Gandhi. Thank you for being a part of this session. Thank you. We're really trying, to make every effort come to life for mental well-being. It's an issue that is very close to our heart. Our entire team at Circle of Life is very passionate about this cause, and day in, day out, we are working towards uplifting the idea of mental health in the society. Um, well, thank you, Shelley. I hope I did justice, and keep feel free to update yourselves on the upcoming sessions with us. Loretta says that after the session, she feels more positive, and she looks forward to practicing mindfulness. Well, I'm glad that you think and feel so. And in fact, we can help you with that, because we will be sending you or sharing a lot of resources around mindfulness with you. And you can check your emails regularly next week, and there'll be um, little and yet really effective practices that you can engage in to enhance your well-being and of those around you as well. When do we get the certificate? Miss Anjana is asking that. Um, you will certainly get a certificate post this webinar, and I think it'll take about 1 or 2 days for you to receive the certificates. Ms. Payal Parekh has mentioned that it was very informative. session for teachers. Again, all thanks to you for making this work. It's a collaborative effort of Circle of Life and K.I.T.E.S Education. Shamsha Merchant has asked, can we do this with early year students as well? Oh, yes, absolutely. Mind On, if I may mention, the program that we work with. Um, it's a program which is suitable for students from grade 1 to grade 12. And the beauty of this program is all the practices, that are there in this program are age appropriate. So what a grade 1 student will experience will be very different from grade 2. However, we've made sure that the results, the positive results that we hope for, the objectives are the same. So our intention is an empowered well-being, a more resilient student, a more resilient child who is able to cope with challenges in their life, day to day, as well as future challenges. And I understand, life is full of highs and lows, and mindfulness acknowledges that. Um, it's a technique where you're not essentially eliminating stress, but you are developing resilience. You are creating a space to create healthier and better coping mechanisms, um, to overcome those challenges. Looking forward to attend more sessions. Well, we're looking forward to having more such sessions. In fact, if you recommend a topic that you'd like to get some information on, feel free to let us know. Um, Nurul Alam has to say that, is this video of the session will be available on YouTube or any website? Please inform. Oh yes, the video for this session will be available on the K.I.T.E.S YouTube channel, and once it's uploaded, I'm sure you shall receive a link for the same, and you can follow this up again at your disposal whenever you feel comfortable. If mindfulness, as I mentioned, is sort of like a skill that you continually have to work with. At first, sometimes a few people find it challenging because, all day long we're busy thinking about the past or focusing on the future. We're never really living in this moment. So mindfulness brings about this really, different change in what you're thinking, what you're feeling. But once you reflect on how you've been thinking and feeling post the practice, I can bet that you found, this one trick up your sleeve for the rest of your life to work on your well-being. It's a really wonderful self-care strategy because it fits all activities, it fits all um, time patterns, and it fits most ages, right from 5-year-olds, 4-year-olds, and age is not really an upper limit here for us. Right. So this session has been incredible. Thank you for being such active participants. Again, we've got a few minutes in our hands. If you've got any comments, questions, any opinions, feel free to um, continue to be as active as you have been. Um, Ghazla Siddiqui, again, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, has said that the mind activity was wonderful. Well, and I'm really glad that you found it useful. As I mentioned earlier, it's a really simple activity, but the impact that it has is really complex in nature. The idea is, mm, so we often think of happiness as always being really happy, but happiness is only one emotion of many emotions, and there's no good or bad emotion. There's only, easy and uneasy emotions. So mindfulness is actually a brilliant way to work on how you experience and manage those uneasy emotions like anger and sadness and fear or shyness. Oh, in fact, if you check the comment section, we've also uploaded um, the K.I.T.E.S education YouTube page link. Ms. Ginny Singhania says it's a wonderful session. Well, thank you for being a wonderful participant. Right. So I think it's a good time to take leave. Again, thank you for being such a wonderful audience. Um, and we hope to connect with you very soon again with more information on mental health, teacher well-being, and how teachers, educators, people out there can make a difference in creating positive classrooms. And please feel free to connect with Circle of Life or our program Mind On of Circle of Life if you wish to create a positive school climate within your school. All right. Thank you so much. And I hope you all are taking good care of yourselves and those around you. And I hope that you are able to focus on positive emotions and that we can all, overcome all the tough times together as we've already been doing that for most of the past year. All right. Good evening, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful evening and good luck. Just one last comment before I leave. We've shared a link of the YouTube page, and you can watch the recording of this session in the next 2 days. So this session will be uploaded in the next 2 days, and you're free to watch and update yourself with all the information. And again, if there's something that you'd like to clarify or share, you are welcome to be active in the YouTube comment section or directly call us or reach us out through email, through our social media handles. We're fairly active on Facebook and Instagram. Navjot Sodi says that they missed out due to unavoidable circumstances. Please include me in the next session. We'll try our best to update you when the next session is going to happen. The one I know of is on February 13th. Again, it's a session based on mindfulness. It'll be conducted by Circle of Life again, one of my colleagues, and I hope that you all can join us in that session again. And for people who missed out on this session, unfortunately, yeah, we look forward to having you there. So thank you for really wonderful participants, and good luck. Let's try and take care of our mental health with one mindful moment every day. Good luck.